All right, try one of the or one of the mics. Oh, hold on. My audio's off.
Test 1, 2. Can you hear me?
I can hear ya.
Cool.
Can some, I don't reckon, hey, Chris Kelly, can you talk to us and you want to hear if we can hear you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Thank you. Good sound check.
Okay. Yep, no problem.
Welcome everyone to the March 4th, 2025 BOT meeting. We just finished up executive session, so no actions were taken or final decisions were made. So go ahead and start the open meeting at 7:04. Karina, want to take roll? I'm here.
Here.
She's not here yet.
Here.
Here.
Okay.
Here.
Is not with us yet.
Thanks, Karina. Thanks everyone. First thing we'll go into is the consent agenda. We have 2 items, warrants, bunch of checks I just signed, and then meeting minutes from February 18th, BOT minutes, BOT meeting minutes. Any comments or questions for John, probably?
To approve the consent agenda?
Second, Karina?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Really?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Karina. Thanks, everyone. With that, we'll go into our action items. This first action item, a contract amendment with SE Group on the change order for finalizing the comp plan. John?
Mayor and trustees, before you tonight, you have a change order that just increased the cost of the comprehensive plan by $5,850. This was due to some work that we did towards the end of this project that wasn't initially scoped. That included extra meeting, making sure that we made all the changes that we needed to the comp plan to make it a comprehensive document, and then making sure that that document is accessible so that it's fully in compliance with digital accessibility standards, which we are required to meet by June 1st. Overall, you have my staff report. It kind of talks about the background of this. We had the areas we discussed in our last meeting. There were 32 of them that the Planning Commission addressed. I think they accepted 29 of those changes. And the contractor worked with us originally. I think their original pricing was around $8,000 for this work, and we talked about some of the challenges that we had through the process, and they did lower it to $5,800, which I think is relatively reasonable based on what we did. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. Oh, also, I put the funding source here. It's 10/12/51/33. That's professional services, and that's where we took the rest of the comp plan from. So I think that's the most logical place.
Any clarifying questions for John? Seeing none or hearing none, we'll go to public comment. Any public no public comment in the room? Anyone online? Any public comment on the contract amendment with SE Group? Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion.
I move to approve the contract amendment with SC Group in the amount of $5,850, increasing the total contract amount to $205,188,000 to finalize the comprehensive plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a discussion. Any discussion? I have a quick, we have a motion and a second. I have a quick question. So this money is coming from, you approve it. It seems totally reasonable, and it's just coming from
It will
the
come
general
from the
fund.
general fund. The rest, well, there was a match, but there was a grant for this from the Department of Local Affairs.
Yeah.
And I am fairly confident that we'll have enough money in that fund to cover the difference.
Okay, great. Cool. So we have a motion, a second. Go ahead. Karina?
Yes.
Rita?
Yes.
Make sure you got the microphone on. Hear me?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you gotta talk right into it.
Trustee Ty?
Yes.
Trustee Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Billy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling?
Yes.
Trustee Maris?
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tanya. And Tanya just joined us at 7:09. Go ahead. Is that everyone? Okay, great. And Trustee Corvalin joined us at 7:09, and then that motion passes, and with that, we'll go on to our second action item of the evening. The adoption of the NED comprehensive plan, and that'll be
Britt?
John and Britt.
Yeah. So it's pretty similar to what you saw last time. The only addition I really made was on February 19th, the PC held a work session to review and discuss the finalization of the final draft. SC Group provided an update of changes after receiving feedback from the February 4th meeting, and members of the public, DDA, and Board of Trustees and PC attended virtually as well. So we took, in the notes for that, I took some direct feedback from Tanya, Luke, and other of you who sent feedback and said feedback from that. And now the final draft is before you today. The only thing I really wanted to go over, which some of it we're starting kind of today, is really we'll start moving on to that strategic planning. There will be ongoing public engagement and then future updates and monitoring as we need to codify this and, you know, town changes and evolves. But yeah, this before you tonight, we have resolution 2025-07. I will let John or Jim add anything else, but there was, I believe, like 15 to 17 changes made based on that last meeting. And we went through them in depth in that work session. So
I guess all I'd add to that is, I think that the working between the planning commission and the board was pretty good in this situation. We had some really good feedback from you, and the planning commission was able to address it really quickly. So I'll just pass it to Jim and let him take over.
And I want to thank you guys for the feedback. I'm sorry, I was a little resistive when I saw you last month. I guess I got a little worried that we were going to get into an endless loop of rewrites, but it ended up coming together pretty fast. The changes that were asked were all reasonable and good feedback that we were able to make. Some of them were things that just hadn't gotten updated yet as far as the maps, but it was good to catch all that. I thought that the work session went really well. We had a good turnout from, it was nice to have some people from the DDA, a couple of members of the DDA there, and then having members of the PC and the BOT to go through that. I think it was actually, as John said, 29 of the 32 requested changes were made, and then we talked in depth about the other ones that we didn't adopt. I feel like that the group was happy with the changes that were made that were there at the work session. We were able to get that stuff all turned around in time for our meeting last Wednesday, and I'm very proud of the plan. I think it's a very comprehensive plan. I mean, you could always find more things to add to it, but I think that it really hits the things that we need for our community going forward, and that we're going to use that to drill down on the priorities that we need to do and what we're able to fund. So we're here today to ask you to ratify this plan and allow us to move on to starting the actual planning of the implementation of the goals. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Tanya, do you have any questions?
I don't. I want to thank everybody for making that work session. I wasn't able to make it, but I think it was really awesome to put that together so that everybody could come together with their feedback. And I was just happy to see that some of the issues that were bothering me had been changed. And of course you can't. Yeah, I think it's great. I'm also, pretty positive about this comprehensive plan and plan to vote yes for it. So thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. Well, with that, we'll go to any clarifying questions before we go to public comment? We'll go to public comment. Any public comment from folks in the room on the adoption of the comprehensive plan? If not, folks online, any comments on the adoption of our comprehensive plan? I don't see any hands raised, so we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion.
Just, a couple of comments. Again, thanks for incorporating a lot of those changes. And there probably won't be a whole lot of discussion just because we've sat with this for, over a year now. As being liaison on the Planning Commission, has been able to see the evolution and then some of the documents that were before this that helped inform it, like the housing study. Mayor Billy and I were on that committee as that. And so it's been really cool to see this progression. And when we compare it to the previous comprehensive plan, I think, like you had said, it's pretty comprehensive. No pun intended, but it is, and I'm glad for that, because we have to think that we're not going to always be here, and so hopefully it gives a good roadmap for other folks. So I make a motion to approve resolution 2025-07, approving the adoption of the comprehensive plan.
Second.
I have a quick comment or.
Yeah, we can go. We got a motion and a
Question before
second, but we can
before we go.
discuss for a bit.
Just in the next steps, there's ongoing public engagement, which I think is great. But I just was wondering, as a planning commission and as a board, if we get public feedback about things that people want to do differently, do we have a plan about, do we want to wait some certain amount of time before we change, make amendments? I mean, I realize we can, make amendments to the comp plan, whenever I feel like it's necessary, but
Better be a pretty darn good reason.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if we're going to do public engagement moving forward as part of the next steps of this, how do we want to think about that? And
This is intended to be a living document.
Yeah.
It's really
Right.
the best practice. We need to be building, the next piece of this is building our strategic plan and using that to inform our strategic plan. But we're going to find things in here that we thought we could do that we don't want to do, or things change quickly, or, who knows what happens. We find, whatever it is that we find out. But over time, at least every 5 years, we should be updating this. And every 10 years, it may need to be replaced. And it may even be every 3 years, depending on how we look at it. So I think for us, the next step is to start interrogating everything in the plan and start taking it apart with Planning Commission. We've been talking about looking at an audit of code, and that may even be something we want to apply for a grant for. And so that could be something on Planning Commission's radar. They've been kind of having some conversations about their next steps after this, and you'll have next steps too. So ultimately, I think this is just like hey, this is a way we could go based on the engagement we've had, and then we need to do the work to figure out what you're saying. So I think we definitely want that process built into the next work as we move forward.
And I think where the public process will really come in is when we adopt our strategic plan. We've distilled the comprehensive plan down. This is what we're going to focus on the next 18 to 24 months or whatnot. And then, I think John says, if there are changes along the way, then that's where the transparency and the public process comes in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know from our past, public engagements, people are always quick to offer lots of opinions, and I don't want us just jumping from one, community response to the next, but also we need to be, we do need to be, taking feedback, and I think that's a good. But I think that kind of 2-3 year cycle is like, okay, every few years we should, incorporate public feedback into this. As John said, this is a living document. So cool. Proceed.
I just want to say thanks. I'm really sorry I was going out of town, so I couldn't catch that meeting on the 19th, but it looks great. Yeah, it sounds like the meeting went well, so thank you. Thanks for all the work. Brett, great job. And everybody. So, with that, Karina, when you're ready, take a vote.
All right. Trustee Larson,
Yes.
trustee Maris,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Looks like we might have gone line. Mayor Billy.
Yes. The motion passes. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, and thanks again, Jim, but yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to Trustee Miller that, we had like 8 public engagement meetings. This was presented to the public. We've had it before the Planning Commission at least 4 times, which also has an opportunity for public engagement. This meeting is public engagement, and everything we do that derives down from this plan, if the Planning Commission is involved with you. So I feel like there's going to be, right now, this is the product of the people that are involved in this town that came to these meetings. And people see different things that are coming out of the plan, and then they'll give you like of reaching out and having these meetings.
Yeah, totally. Thinking as for the next few years, what, people will find to input. This is
Great. And I just
Time
want
goes
to
on.
take a minute to thank
Yeah.
very much our town staff, especially Britt, who information every time we were spouting off all the changes. She was the one that had to put this together and make sense of it. The SE group did a lot of the writing work, but it was by. Thank you so much for doing the lion's share of this effort. I really appreciate it, and thank you.
nice work, you guys.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, PC. Thanks, Britt. Well done. Well done. Yeah. Thank you. And with that, we'll move to our third and last action item of the evening, the raw water pump purchase.
So
Andrew?
it's a big change from a comprehensive plan to a pump.
That's how we roll, my friend. That's how we roll.
Doing of the thing.
So just to be clear, we're here tonight not because we think we'll go over budget with this purchase. It's because our financial policy requires us to come to the board with purchases over $10,000 that weren't specifically budgeted at the beginning of the year. We purchased a capital improvement project last year. We purchased a pump for our raw water pump station, and we thought we were good, didn't need any other spares. We had another pump fail just recently and would like to purchase a new pump. Just very simply, these pumps pump water from the creek up to our treatment plant. They are critical, and with your approval, we expect the pump to be here in between 1 to 2 weeks, and we're able to make water until then.
I'm just going to take over from Mayor Billy here. Any clarifying questions for Andrew?
There was a comment in here that you were working with the supplier, like, is there a chance we could end up with that pump getting replaced and then we'd have a spare? Is that?
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. The pump distributor came up on Friday to look at it, and I've heard this before, but Friday really confirmed this. These pumps are basically very expensive disposable pumps that if anything goes wrong with the electric motor inside of them, it's much smarter and more cost effective to buy a new one than repair it. If the pumps were much larger, it would be more cost effective to repair them. But for this pump, they diagnosed it as the motor windings were grounded, shorted to ground, and which would require rewinding the motor inside the pump. And I think that it gets around $78,000 just to do that for this type of motor and pump, and it's better to get a new pump with a warranty.
Right. So the pump that faulted, we're not going to end up with a spare by fixing that.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a long answer. And just to be clear, we can run our water plant with one of these pumps.
Yeah, totally.
So we have built in.
Yeah, it
Yep.
was kind of hoping we might end up with a
Me
spare,
too.
a spare
Yeah,
pump out
yeah,
of the
me
deal.
too.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Any other questions?
Tanya, you have any questions for Andrew?
No, I was just joking, saying it sounds like my dishwasher, my washing machine, my dryer. It's just cheaper to buy a new one. And or
Right on. With that, we'll go to public comment. Any comments in the room on the raw water pump purchase? Folks online, any comments on this action item? If not, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion.
There's no motion language.
I move to approve the purchase of a raw water pump using 2025 budget funds.
Second.
Motion and a second.
That looks sufficient. I think you got it all covered there.
Nice.
Right.
You've done this. Karina?
Trustee Ty,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Corvallon,
yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling.
Yes.
All right, the motion is approved.
Thanks, Karina. Appreciate it. Well, that will go to our first discussion item of the evening, the strategic planning process. John?
I am really excited that we are right here now. We've got the comp plan approved, which is something we've been trying to do since I've been here. And now we can look at our strategic plan. And the strategic plan is really where the rubber meets the road and where we start executing our goals as a community and as a board. I tried to lay out in my aim what a planning process typically looks like for this and what they are. You guys went through this in your last plan, and you have a good strategic plan for your last one. I think we achieved, the way we know it's a good plan is we achieved most of the goals that are in there in one way or another, even as they evolved over time. And I think that what we're looking to do is build on that now. I can answer any questions you have about what a strategic plan includes, but what I really wanted to tell you is I did talk to Chris LeMay, who did your planning process last time. He offered to do it again for free, which is a good thing. We could also find a facilitator. We'd have to do a little bit of research and have to look at a funding allocation for that, but that's something we could do. The other things I really wanted to just bring up as a part of the strategic planning, one of the things I'd really like to do as a part of this process is engage the department heads and Rita in terms of the service levels that they're providing to the community right now and kind of what their internal goals are, because I'd like that to inform your conversation as well. We also have the strategic plan, and I have been working to try to parse out all the action items so that we can look at that in a holistic way. And, our strategic plan is not going to be all whatever 176 action items there, but if we can start looking at how we approach the next 2 years, I think that will be really good. I think we're really at a crossroads in Nederland right now. I think we're always at a crossroads, but right now there's a lot of things that have been set up for us. We've had all these studies, the housing needs assessment, the multimodal plan, the comprehensive plan. We've done a lot of work to remain and to be an employer of choice, to protect our water rights, all these different strategic goals we've had. And now I think it's going to be time to just start knocking down pins, basically. And so I think that that's going to be the fun part of this plan. So what I guess I'm looking for tonight in terms of kind of questions for you, and this is a discussion, but I've kind of laid out a process where there'd be a department head meeting, and that could be with the board or just on their own. And then there'd be maybe a board retreat is how I have done this in the past. I don't know if that works for you. And we could schedule that either like on a weekday or a weekend day, and we could find some place to do it that, you know, we could get lunch and spend our time making sure that we get that correct. There should also be some community engagement about this plan, and looking at, I think that's one of my questions to you, is just how we want to engage the community. There may be some good opportunities to engage the other advisory boards too, and to really think about the relationship between advisory boards and the Board of Trustees. That's really the crux of my questions. I'm just thinking about structure, timeline, and how we facilitate this process.
I have some ideas. This is
Everyone else,
Tanya.
go ahead. Let's, Tanya, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Just overall, like first, how to engage the community. I think we should hear them first before our retreat, so we have the information to guide us to a degree, right? So I would like to, whatever the public engagement piece and how we do it, I don't have that answer, but prior to our retreat, I would like to have some data as to what the community wants us to focus on. And then my second is a question as how do we deal with, goals and whatnot from the past retreat that have not been met properly? Do we bring that back to those department heads prior to the meeting? And maybe that's the thing I just need to bring up with John on a personal level. But anyway, that's just my 2 comments.
Thanks, Tanya. Chris, did you have something to say?
I was just curious for those board members who were on the previous board who worked with that facilitator.
Yes.
I'd be curious how that went. You want to speak in public or not?
Oh,
That's
Putting
me.
you on the spot.
Nicole, you were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yes.
there.
So, and I understand that I have a bias on this because I've played that role many times, and I have a very specific way that I like things to be done and tightened up. I think what the presenter got us to was very high level, and this is something I'm going to be a very big stickler about as we go through this process. That got us to some very high level goals, and the BOT said, "Yep, this looks good." I personally said, no, it's not good enough. And so I took the goals, and with Miranda, we distilled it down into what we call like the SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, the yada, yada, yada. And that's something that it's like really important so that when Tanya says, hey, this goal isn't met, how do we address it, right? Because we're trying to make it as specific as possible. So had we maybe given that direction, would the presenter have gotten us there much more quickly? Perhaps. But I think that would be a requirement of like making sure that like, hey, your job at the end of this is not just to have these very high level sort of, not and very vague goals. It's to have us be very specific. But I do think that there is a process beforehand that needs to happen that can also make that presenter's time and focus sharp. So that's my feedback on that. Anything else? Question? Any other thoughts? Luke?
Do we have a timeline for completion of this document? I mean, a optimistic.
So the last time that we went through this process, because like we did do a retreat, we did like a half-day retreat, maybe even 2 half-day retreats, maybe. Actually, we did a half-day retreat with just the Board of Trustees, and then we did a staff. And over the course of that process, until it was finalized and in a document form for the BOT to approve, was probably 2 or 3 months. So I would like to think that maybe we could get through it a little bit quicker this time around. But it'll take us a couple months to get it together.
we could have like a community forum type event, like an open house to kind of open this conversation up, have some materials for that community meeting, and then have the meeting with the department heads too, so that we're kind of got all the data points that you guys need that's not a BOT data point, and then have that retreat. And we could do one or two. I think, it really depends on like how we workflow this. The other thing we could do is if you wanted to have a smaller working group, like maybe Mayor Pro Tem Sterling, if you wanted to meet with me, with him, and there's other people from DOLA that could do this as well. So we could talk to a couple of folks and maybe create like a generally like a scope of service document, which is this government document to write.
Does love a really good scope of service document.
We could clarify the guidelines, because the other really important thing here is that we want to make sure that strategic plan, that the staff can implement them. And there's also going to be a financial component this year, because we do know, budgeting wise, we need to be thinking about what our budget situation looks like in the general fund specifically. So I think that is something that we might want to think about. The other thing that I have been thinking about is that our budget situation may significantly change between now and 2027, which is when, you do a 2-year plan typically, or a 3-year plan. We may want to have an update potentially if there are other capital projects we want to consider and things like that. And I just am throwing that out there that we're going to have to really think about that piece of the planning.
Other thing we do is we give department heads and just people in general time to the comp plan, so they can think about how that relates to so that when we collect from the different departments that, and I know that it's been out there for a while, so, but
Not in its final version.
yeah,
So-
but yeah, I mean, you want to give people, it's a big document, and you want to give people time to digest it and think about it before we start collecting that input. So that's something I think we should work into the timeline for this.
One thing that might be nice is if we could be done by July 31st at 5:00 p.m. That would be great, because that's when the audit is due to DOLA, which is for our financial audit for last year. And that is really the start of our budget season, when we really need to kick it into high gear for 2026. So if we had this strategic plan that could guide that conversation, it may be helpful potentially.
Okay.
I agree with talking to the department heads before we kind of have a retreat, but I think I would also like for the department heads to look at, to continue in the conversation and look at drafts afterwards as well, because we can get the data and then make our plan. And I think it would be good for them to review it as well, to give us feedback if we misinterpreted something, or if we, created goals that now they think are actually not feasible. Like, we need to know that before we finalize anything. So I think a continued engagement with department heads would be great.
Any other thoughts?
Nicole, do you have a plan to constraint, like put those guardrails on to get us the SMART
Oh, yes.
goals?
I hope you would expect nothing less. No.
I do, but I just, want
Yeah.
to give you a chance to
Yeah, so part of it, and so I would agree with like some of the things that have been surfaced of having like some sort of forum where citizens and the department heads can give us sort of, because there's the bottom up and the top down approach, and I always like to kind of meet in the middle. And so where we can get some of that feedback early on. And then that process that you're talking about, Luke, it's a bit of a what's more important conversation, where we as a BOT have to prioritize, and we have to decide, yeah, this is something that'd be great to have, but is it more important than infrastructure? And I would also like that feedback from some of the boards. Now, how this process happened last year is I actually ran the strategic process for multiple boards, for NDDA, ProSab, and tried to connect what was happening at the BOT level, and also SAB. And so I think we have an opportunity to do a better job with that, especially through our liaison process and everything, just to make sure like, hey, we heard your feedback from citizens, department heads, advisory boards. We took that feedback, we sort of massaged it. This is what, and taking into consideration other things that people didn't bring up in the comprehensive plan. And here's our first go. Here's our first, draft. Like you said, allow people to sort of comment on that and then go from there. But that process of prioritization, it is brutal. I will just preface that right now, but it's necessary.
I have a few thoughts about it. Well, one, this time I'd like things to be pretty specific as to exactly the goal. And then secondly, we want it to be within our budget of perhaps the year prior, like not assuming we're going to have more budget than what we have. So we have to be realistic with these goals. So I want it to be specific and realistic if we're going to bother with this. And then
Well-
I do want us to reevaluate our last goals and really find where we were unrealistic and what we were realistic about, but that did not get accomplished, and also give kudos to what did get accomplished. And I'd like that to just be real, like upfront. Like we need to give accolades to things that that happened, but at the same time, for sure, I want that. But I also want to be realistic about like, why didn't this happen? In these 18 months. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do versus like big flowery statements. I want it to be like, this is bam, what we want. Personally, that's what I'd like to get out of a retreat.
Yeah, a retroactive, I think, is necessary, hands
Yeah,
down. It has to happen.
That happen prior to a retreat so that we come into a retreat with already debriefed. So I just hate to like waste time debriefing on that stuff. Like, I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, could we, have a discussion item prior to a retreat where we debrief upon the last
Yeah, I mean,
time? This, you know what
go
I'm
ahead,
saying?
Jen.
That we don't
I was
waste
gonna-
time. We move forward,
We've had that or you've had that structure for a while to have grant updates and strategic plan updates. And I think
Yeah.
the last strategic plan update pretty much said most of the work was either done or there was a reason not to have it done. But what we could do, we could have a discussion item either on the 18th or on the first meeting in April, whichever you guys feel more comfortable with. And we could have that retroactive and go through what worked, what didn't work, and what you
Yeah.
guys would like to see. And I think, if we could do that sooner than later, it would be good because then we can start building our plans
Yeah,
for
that'd
the
be great.
effort.
Like less of a presentation, which I love, and I love these presentations, but more of a discussion would be great. Yeah. So
Can I put
less
that
of-
on the agenda? We have to look at it and make sure it fits, but one of those two meetings, would you guys be comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like it would be a good way to bring into the next round so that we really go over what were our goals 18 months ago when we sat and did this retreat, and where did we not meet them, and maybe that's okay, it's probably okay. And so should we abandon that for the next one? Let's not keep bringing up the same stuff if we're not going to accomplish it. But if we did accomplish it, great, kudos. And if we didn't, why? And do we want to still accomplish it? That kind of stuff is kind of what I'm getting at, so that we can move forward instead of just rehashing the same stuff.
You're still in comment mode, right? You haven't gone to public comment.
We haven't gotten to public comment yet, no.
What other ideas or comments or just, questions the trustees have?
Probably move to public comment.
But there's plenty of room, Tanya, in the first meeting of April for this, and possibly even the next meeting in March. Yeah, I agree though. I mean, it would, I mean, I want things to be pretty action oriented and like realistic about what we can do. And then we kind of decide what we can do and we stick to that versus, then for the next 2 years, trying to add a bunch of new stuff into it. Because people, we all have priorities that come up, but like we got to use it as our real plan to stick to. And, but yeah, we do have, I'd say we can bring this up again and talk through, where we're at and kind of discuss it more. And, and that'll set us up good for the session. With that-
Would you be interested in having some subset of the board meet with me and potential facilitators, or do you want me to kind of handle that based on your feedback that you gave tonight? Or I'm just thinking about how we pick that person.
Oh, you mean, yeah, that part. Let's think about that after public comment.
Okay.
That will go with public comment. You guys in the room, any public comments on this? Did you plan of the BOT? Folks online, any public comments? All right. Hearing none, we'll bring it back. So you talked about Chris LeMay, and then I had to walk out, so I didn't catch everything.
There's another person at DOLA. There's a couple of people at DOLA that could help. Chris, another person is Todd Leopold. He's another regional manager. And we could talk to them about who else might be available. I also know there's a couple of facilitator type people in the region. I just think the DOLA ones would be free. And then that's a benefit. But
$3.99.
I've done strategic plans with both Todd and with Chris in the past, and they have very different styles. So if we're looking for a different style, we could, yeah.
What are the different styles?
Let me guess. Todd is going to drive and kind of push a little bit more.
Yeah, I think he is a lot. I think Chris has they just have different personalities, but I think that what you're talking about may be something that you'd see on.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so Todd might kind of push us harder to.
Yeah, I think he has a different process and a lot of ways to kind of get at what the goals are and to kind of suss those things out. And I think Chris is a good listener and he listens to what people say and then he puts it down. And I think that it just depends on how active you want that facilitator to be in the process.
Well, we did go with Chris last time, yeah, so. Maybe a change is not a bad thing, and Chris is awesome, yeah, it's not good or bad, it's just, anyways, yeah, but I mean, I don't know, we're not making that decision right now, right? We're discussing how we'll make that.
But I think what John is asking for is like, is there a smaller subset or a couple of folks that work with him to sort of determine, the rest of the process for the strategic goals and who that person might be?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Do we want it to be a couple, a couple or a few? If it's three of us, then we got to notice the meetings, which is fine. None of this is secret.
Probably just be one or two.
Yeah.
And then we would bring this back for your overall approval, I think, or just an update on it.
Okay. Do we want to talk about who has an interest? As well as Nicole.
I am more than happy to help on this.
I'm digesting a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we have to decide now either, but.
We get to
if
write a
folks
scope
wanna
of
think.
service document. It's going to be really fun.
This makes John.
Can you see this look on my face?
Can you
It's
see the look at-
terror.
Can you see the look on John's face? It's
John is
bliss.
of a different kind of fun. This is,
He
what
loves
is
scope
tier
of
2 fun?
service.
Yeah. Yeah, there might be another type 3.
So I mean, I think it'd be good to have at least a couple people. I would definitely, be interested in being part of it, or at least, hearing about it from the people who are doing it. If I'm okay to not be point on this too. Oh, I thought you were thinking why it's interesting.
like I said, I'm digesting a lot of this.
Okay.
Um, so,
That's actually Ty's mob name and code name, the Digester.
I don't know if anybody else knew that. Thanks for blowing it, Nicole.
I think we could manage it time-wise too, so it's not super invasive on anyone's schedule. I think it'd probably be, you know, this meeting with these folks and just talking to them and then doing some planning efforts that we could do either remotely or however that works best. We could have cookies.
I prefer tacos.
And Tyranny's requesting ice cream, so.
So, do you need more direction? Can people think about joining this advisory group?
Yeah, I think so. And then if we end up needing to do a quorum situation, if that's part of it, then we'll just post it so that we can do that.
Yeah, because I think that's not a problem. Okay. Well, thanks, everyone. What do you have everything you need from us on this right now?
Yep. And just in case there's anything that anyone in particular wants to add that we haven't discussed, I think this is the time to do it.
I have a quick question. How many previous strategic plan documents do we have going back? I'm just kind of curious.
So there are several, but they're very high level. So this was one of the very first strategic goal documents that we had that was very focused and specific. And that had multiple sort of core objectives. So we modeled it after OKRs.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so this was one of the very first, very specific ones.
Gotcha. Is there any value in the historic strategic goal documents?
You can go back. We did take that into consideration, like the older document before we made this document. And then also like the comprehensive plan, but a lot of it was also just things that people had said like, oh, we've been asking for this for so long and it just hasn't gotten done, right? Kind of a thing.
Well, I mean, that was kind of why I was asking is like, are there things that have been in the strategic goals for however many versions of it and that
I think the valuable piece will be starting with this comprehensive plan,
yeah,
this
totally.
updated comprehensive
Yeah.
plan, because
But I'm just trying to think of both avoiding pitfalls of creating the same thing
One
again,
thing
but
that
also
was
get
really
done.
good about this strategic plan is it gave staff some concrete walls because that was like one of the
current one.
problems is like things would
Yeah.
move and
Yeah.
then it was hard for staff to understand which priorities to follow.
Yeah.
And so having the strategic plan in place really gives them a better, I think that's
Yeah.
what the model is, but you do see there's things like Big Springs egress or something like that that people have been talking about since 2000 or whatever
Right.
it is. So I think we could do that. We could do a little bit of analysis in what that looks like.
It seems like it'd be helpful to have those on hand as we
Yeah.
go through this process. And
Okay,
even
we
though
can probably
the
parse that
previous
out.
one obviously is, most right.
to go to the comprehensive plan. Got what we need to focus on for the future.
Do you, it's in 2016, right? At
It is important, just to that point, that when the board creates goals, that they should be policy-based goals and say, we should get to X. But then you leave the department head and the staff some room to say, this is how we get there, and you work through those processes together. And that is a kind of a best practice for plans like that. But I think that the plan you have right now largely achieves that.
The
in
what,
the way it's
yeah,
structured.
what are we achieving? And then the how, you guys get to define like how we get there in many cases, for sure. 100%. But the one piece that I don't want to lose is that once we have the strategic plan is that how it trickles into the advisory board. So much like staff, we kind of last year we did a bit of these are the things that the staff sees from the ground up. And then we had a few things from a, kind of a top-down perspective. But the same I would say for the advisory boards is that those discussions were, okay, what do you all want to do from a bottoms up, like from what you see needs to happen? And then here are some things from the Board of Trustees that would also be worthy of working on. So again, it's sort of this meeting in the middle. And how that gets, it's like 3 to 5 core components. Maybe 2 come from the Board of Trustees, the rest are from the ground up and organic from within the advisory board. But that's one piece that we're going to need everyone's help on.
Any more questions or comments? All right. Thanks, John. You got what you need?
Yeah, thank you. We'll bring that back in maybe April. We'll figure out when that work session can be to rehash everything, and then I'll be in touch on how we talk to the facilitators and start working on the plan stuff.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. What? I think we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was quiet as all the other ones have been. hard to notice. Okay. With that, we'll go to our next discussion item, the Caribou Cross Mine Designated Mining Operation Application Process.
Well, Mayor and trustees, we've talked about this a little bit in the past. I had it in a staff update, but Grand Island Resources has submitted an application for the conversion of the Cross Gold Mine to become a designated mining operation. And basically, this is a process that means that they can mine with what are supposed to be more strict environmental controls based on what the division of mining, which most people call DREAMS, so that's probably what I'll call it, requires from them. They've been working on a new application for some time, and it was just deemed complete by DREAMS. And so when that happened, it kind of precipitated a public information period. They're required to post it in a local paper for several weeks in a row. They started on the 20th, and that means that the period is over on the 2nd. And then there's like a 20-day response window for concerns to be issued. I had some additional conversations today that are not in my staff report, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of next steps. Anyone has standing to submit a concern, and there's several criteria that the concerns need to address. It's like any land use decision that we make, they have the same kinds of criteria that they use to make those decisions. I have learned today that there will be a public hearing for this application, and that by submitting a concern, you have standing at that hearing, essentially. So in my staff report, I kind of walk through the process of how this works. It is a little bit complicated. There's thousands of documents related to this mining operation, which are available on the Division of Mining website. And what we are hoping to do tonight is kind of talk to you and the community a little bit and say that we're come up with the valid concerns that we have. We've had some conversations about these operations. There's things that I think we would like to know more about. The process of mining being used here is called stoping, and it's very similar to what you consider, not down, removing overburden, and then gravel, more similar to like what a hard rock.
You explain that a little more.
Yeah, doing a vein of gold or whatever it is. Standards, but what we do know is the mineral belt here is the same one that is in the Clear Creek Superfund site, which is in Gilpin County and Clear Creek County, all 400 square miles of Superfund site, because of that mineral and because of the acidic nature of what you. And so there are some concerns about making sure that essentially that water comes out of that mine in predictable fashion and because that Parker Reservoir. So is primarily questions about the hydraulics and the fractured rock that we know exists. Because what can happen is water, once you cut a drift or you cut in whatever it is that you're doing, once that water moving, it can move in funny ways, and it can impact property rights. It can impact the community. There's different our facility. We're also concerned about the does have that they'd have to take for the mine. The area of the mining operation is also significantly increasing from around 9 acres to over 200 acres. So it's a much bigger area, and I think that that's a question that we have as well. I think one of the points that I wanted to make is that this is a pretty technical field. I've been working in, Superfund sites for a while, and I know some things, but I'm not an expert. And so one of the things I wanted to mention is that we've been working with the city of Boulder, and we've also been working in Boulder County. And there is some logic to maybe us considering hiring an expert who can help us with some of the comments we might make from a hydrology standpoint or from a rock standpoint, a geology standpoint. It's not necessary though. They know we're not experts. And in terms of standing, that was an original concern that we had, that we wouldn't have standing because we can't provide evidence of these things that are happening on site. But that won't probably be something that really affects us because that hearing is already happening. But we may want to consider whether or not a representation by an expert or something else would be a good idea for us to consider. One other note, SAB, there are some members from SAB here tonight, and they discussed this at their last meeting, and they've gone through the application as well. And they have some thoughts specific to their advisory board that I think are important for these concerns. I also just want to note, in terms of public comments, there are folks in our community who don't feel comfortable submitting comments on their own and would rather submit them anonymously. And what I would like to do is make sure that I'm available to take those comments and I can submit them as a part of our concern so that they can be in the packet, because one of the criteria is public input. And I think it reasonable to say that these are concerns we received that people do not want to public identify themselves for. And then other community members that are comfortable submitting those comments, we do want to try to make sure that they get them to the appropriate place. And I'm happy to help with that. What I'd like to do is bring you a finished version of this letter on the 18th, if possible, so that we can go over all of the concerns and make sure that everything is to your approval. And then we would want to submit it, and hopefully a little bit earlier in the process. I'd like to not wait to the last minute just to make sure it gets there and we don't have any issues. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. We've also got members from SAB here if you have questions for them. And I think that's it.
Questions for John?
Do you have any more details about the expansion to the 200 acres? I mean, that I'm only very much guessing based on having looked at the property maps that that's roughly the amount of land that they own up there. Are they just saying they want to be able to include all of the land that they currently own?
I
Or
think
is there, they
essentially-
actually want to expand the current mine?
Or is that to also provide the possibility for the mill?
They do. I think that is part of it. I think both of those answers are true. I think they want to be able to mine effectively, from a technical perspective, where the minerals are that they want, and then the milling operations as well.
Because I mean, it would seem to me that like they own a lot of property up there that we would definitely not want mining to take place on.
Yes, and that is one of the criteria. You can look at public health and safety and environmental impact, which is, animals, wildlife, historic impact on historic mills and things that are up there. There's a lot of things that could be concerns in that space that kind of address what you just said there. And I think what we would want to do is identify them and make sure that we're clear on what we are looking for more information on. One other thing I didn't mention, traffic could be a concern here because that road is not designed to a standard to allow multiple heavy vehicle loads a day. And we know that road already has, trucks have a hard time getting up there. So it is not 100% clear in the criteria that traffic can be addressed. Although I think in environmental impact and public health and safety. Yeah. And the other thing to remember is that this still has to go through a Boulder County process once the DREAMS process is over. And so there will be other permits required by the county that will look specifically at like an engineered traffic study and looking at the capacity of the road.
Well, and certainly on the public health and safety side, the local mills that can process the ores, the minerals that they are looking at would require those heavy trucks to come through town.
Yes.
So
Right.
there will be public health and safety for residents in town on that fact.
Are they spelling out that they're gonna do a mill at the moment? Or is that still not stated? Go for it. Come on up, Rich. 'Cause I haven't seen it yet, actually. Yeah.
Hello again. My name's Rich Orman. I am one of the co-chairs of the Sustainability Advisory Board. And we had a little working session the other day and we looked through it and I can't say I've read every word of this application. It's like 600 pages long. But I've tried to glean a lot of answers to some of the questions people have had, because when well, how does go down of mine? I was going through it and really trying to figure out what they were talking about. You hear that kind of number, you think it's got to be like a strip mine. I think that that's sort of note that they're doing where they incorporate look at the application, they don't have actual plans for the mill. What they're talking about is eventually designing a mill, and then that would have to go through some type of subsequent application process. So we don't know exactly what the mill would look like, but it would be processing ore that would come from the mine. The way I read this application is all of the mining is going to take place underground. They're going to be blasting and drilling for gold and I think probably some rare earths, although reading the reports, I don't really think there's a lot of rare earths up there. They are talking about a mining operation to last at least 50 years. They think that that is how much stuff is down there and how long they're going to go. They claim in their application that there really is no danger of water leaking from the mine and polluting groundwater or flowing out into other things. I think it'd be fair to say I'm very skeptical of that claim. I'm not a hydraulic engineer. One of the things they do talk about in their report is sort of a general description of the aquifer that exists there. And the total refresh rate for that aquifer of when water comes in, when it goes out, is up to 5,000 years. So again, this is going to be with us for a very long time if it goes forward. They are going to be using cyanide in their process. They mentioned that. Now, that can be a little bit scary of a word because it's obviously an extremely toxic substance. It's also very reactive. And I think most gold mines will use some type of cyanide leaching process on the ore. One of the questions we had at the SAB is the town administrator talked about the county permit application that's going to have to go through. We were trying to figure out if there's a federal mining permit that they would have to apply for. And I am not an expert in this field, but as best I can tell, the answer to that is probably no. It's not on federal land. It's all private property. They apparently got a letter from the Army Corps of Engineers that indicates they are not going to have a discharge that requires some type of permit from them for discharging in the waters of the United States. So I don't think they're going to go through that process. They're certainly going to try not to. Regarding the traffic, they do talk about a lot of trucks going up and down that road. And as someone that uses that road a lot in the summer, it's hard for me to imagine how that's going to work. I don't know what agreements they might have now or in the future with Boulder County regarding improvement or maintenance of the road. I think Boulder County is probably in the best position to make an objection and assessment on that because it's their road. I heard what the town administrator said about hiring an expert regarding this hydrology, and I do think an expert needs to look at this. One thing before the town spends any money on something like that, I would recommend getting together with Boulder County and the city of Boulder, because the city of Boulder especially is going to be a primary victim, so to speak, if there is some type of leakage that goes into a spring, and all of a sudden we get heavy metals into Boulder Creek that goes into the Barker Reservoir and impacts their water supply. And it doesn't impact our water plant, but we do have water storage in Barker. So theoretically, it impacts our water supply as much. But I think the city of Boulder and Boulder County have much more resources to hire some type of engineering firm to look at this. So I would want to be really certain that they're not doing it before we decided to spend any money doing it. We don't need to duplicate their efforts. Obviously, the people on the SABs, I think you would probably guess, are very concerned about this. I think most, if not all of us, are planning on writing our individual letters of objection to this. And one of the things we were thinking about, and I don't know if this body wants to do that, is coming up with some type of proposed language that people could use to draft their own letters to the state government on this. I don't know that I'd want to come up with a 10-paragraph thing and say, cut and paste this and send it. I don't know how effective that would be. I think it might even be a little annoying to the people that would read it. But if it was something like, here's a bunch of points, and here's some language you can use, pick and choose, do what you want. We are considering doing that. I used an AI to sort of draft a generic letter, and it seemed to be pretty good. So we may sort of go that route.
Have you heard, like, is there more power and more individual letters versus less letters from, collective letters?
I don't know. I mean, you are talking about people that work for the state government who are, for lack of a better word, bureaucrats that are going to be reviewing this. And I don't know how they're going to react. I can think back to when I was sort of a bureaucrat reviewing things. Quantity didn't make much of a difference, but, quality did. But, you can also gauge the amount of opposition in the community to the number of people in the community that will object. So I do think it's important that everybody in the community that has an objection states it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I can try to answer any other questions, and I know we have other people from the SAB that can talk to you as well.
Questions for Rich?
I have a very high level question here. So these guys are applying for this permit, which would require additional regulatory oversight. If they don't get this permit, does that mean they get to continue operating with less regulatory oversight currently how they are?
No, what would happen, they have the opportunity to keep applying until they get it. But what would happen is it would cease being the kind of application. It's a little complicated, but basically right now they're eligible to upgrade their permit for operations. But if they're not allowed to have it, then they're supposed to move into the reclamation phase of the mining operation. But they do have the option to keep applying if they want to. But it would essentially just be a time setback.
Right.
One other thing.
What are they currently doing?
If you read the application, they're currently, I think, doing some maintenance. They do have this wastewater system for water that's coming out of the mine anyway. And I think that they're doing some testing and assaying to see if there is something in there that they want to mine. What they are talking about is when you drive up to the Caribou Town site, before you get there, off to the left-hand side of the road, the south side of the road, there's that sign, Colorado mining history, and you can see the little train, right? And there's buildings behind that. That's really going to be their main works. And from the big building that you can sort of see from the road, there's a tunnel. I think it's called the Idaho Tunnel that goes into the mine. And that, I think, is going to be their primary way of getting in and out of the mine and getting ore out of the mine. And then when the ore is processed, as I read the plans, they're planning on putting it back into the mine and sort of backfilling the mine with the processed ore.
There is a concern that tunnel could connect potentially to the Boulder Tunnel. But I forget what mine, the one that Boulder County just purchased, and that could be problematic. Because once water's, once ground is fractured, it just moves.
There are lots of tunnels up there.
Yeah.
And lots of ways to get into that mine. I mean, if you walk down the road, the road that goes to Eldora, the back way, just as soon as you start going down that road, there's at least two openings into what I'm assuming is the Caribou mine.
Yeah.
That are they're gated off. You can't walk into them, but that's just an example of if water started flowing out of that, that could have a big impact on that wetland, the Caribou Bog.
Yeah. I mean, in my understanding, that tunnel goes all the way up underneath the sort of Five Points parking area and, connects into stuff that they've got that's sort of, and that there's a bit of a watershed saddle there that where the stuff kind of to the north goes north into Boulder County's watershed.
I think you may be talking about the Boulder County Tunnel. I think that's actually the name of it, the Boulder County Tunnel, which I think is in the area of the old Cadmium Ghost Town.
Okay.
There's that
yeah.
flat area as you're
Yeah.
driving up there.
Yeah.
There's nothing there anymore, but there was a town there at one
Yeah.
point.
They put a little treatment
But
facility.
the tunnel that is in the big building there, right on where the sign is, goes all the way up underneath the old Caribou Town site and connects up to underneath by the parking area.
Oh, yeah. And if you go up past the parking area, there's another
right, and
mining
that-
place that they have that they own,
Yeah,
that they have
and
some equipment at.
Right, and I think those are connected through that tunnel.
Yeah, they don't provide, as far as I could see, again, it's a long thing. I could have missed something.
Yeah.
They don't provide anything that I would have wanted to see in terms of a comprehensive map of all of the mining shafts and tunnels and adits and all of that exist in that area. I mean, to me, you would really need to take a look at that to assess what the risks are, where the water might come out, where there might be issues. They are planning on blasting or covering up with concrete a bunch of openings and adits that they know of. And they mentioned the plans for all of that in their application.
Yeah,
The
I
other-
saw they did make a reference to like the Coon Creek watershed seeping down into the mine. And
Yeah.
so that,
That's one of the big questions is
Right.
whether the water treatment facility is adequate. And I think
Yeah.
there's academic debate about that right now that you can see if you just look for it. So
yeah,
One of the things that was talked about is the surety bond. Looking at it, it's hard for me to imagine it would even really be possible for them to come up with a really adequate surety bond. I really think you would need something in many millions of dollars to do that. Because if you think about it, let's say this is a bust. Let's say the company goes belly up and you still have water coming out of this mine and all of this stuff. Who then is going to treat it? Who is going to monitor it? And their monitoring that they are planning on is, I think, extremely minimal. Like really, like maybe once a year they would test the waters. That's how I read it.
yeah,
So, I mean, again, I'm not saying I'm 100% correct on that, but that's how I read it. But think about it. If they're talking about a mine that's going on for 50 years or more, before it closes, who knows what the world even looks like in 50 years. But then I would think you're going to need another 50 years, 100 years after that to monitor this and to make sure it doesn't just flow in and disturb the human environment, the natural environment going forward.
yeah, well, Argo Tunnel is a perfect example of that, which is the same mineral belt. It stopped mining before World War I, and it's still dumping out heavy metals, like 5 pounds of heavy metals a month.
So I think there's a lot of bases to object to this. I think anybody that's planning an objection should think about their strongest 1 or 2 points and go with that for a particular objection. I think that's probably more impactful to someone reading it, but that's just my thought.
If through objections, if one were to go to press for a hearing, do you think it's reasonable to ask for them to produce, those kind of maps, detailed maps,
Well,
underground maps of what's in there,
I think so.
where it goes?
I'm sure they exist.
Yeah.
I'm sure they exist somewhere. I mean, it's a mine. They're going to want to know where all the shafts are in the mine. I'm sure they do. Yeah, it's got to exist. And maybe they have it filed somewhere that's not in this application. It's one of these many documents that was talked about.
We have been also just saying, we've worked with Boulder County and City of Boulder a little bit too, and there has been a collaborative effort there, and we can put that all together here. We did get told that it's most effective to have a lot of that. You want the comments, but like you said, you want to have legitimate comments made. One of my concerns is this is a quasi-judicial decision-making process, and so you want to really respect what that means. I know you guys make those decisions frequently, but we want to make sure that we're participating in that process the right way so that the comments be taken seriously.
I think that would be one comment I'd make based on, past experience with this project, is the direction that the town or that the Board of Trustees gives to the community is kind of a process discussion. It's like, hey, you should, if you feel strongly about this, please write a letter. Here's how to contact the mine board. Not so much say this, this, and this. Staying away from specifics, but saying, hey, you live in, along Coon Creek. You should, if
So,
you feel,
yeah.
make a comment, and here's how you do it. But leave sort of the content of those comments.
We shouldn't be drafting bullets like here's templates, here's bullets. Yeah, we probably should. Yeah, that makes
And if
sense.
that's your direction to us, we will obviously abide by what you want us to do. Us meaning the SAB.
Yeah, I'm Chris, what do you think about that? Chris Larson?
Yeah.
I mean, like, so sad being a town board.
I will definitely take that back to the other members of the SAB when we discuss this. I think we're meeting Monday to discuss it further.
You have connection in with like Peter, our engagement manager, so that you can put it on social media? The request that, hey, action is happening if you feel compelled.
Certainly, I think that that's the plan. I think the Mountaineer probably also would cover it. I know that they were trying to get into our meeting online
Oh,
that we
yeah.
had the other day. I don't.
He
think
was
it's
he was
successful.
next to me. That was at 6 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did get him the copy. So
Yeah, Britt got
Yeah.
on the recording. Yeah.
So, but yeah, yes, absolutely. Our plan would be to ask the town to publicize anything that we thought was appropriate.
I'd like to bring this back to you on the 18th with a formulated letter. Just to put it out there, my staff report has the decision-making criteria that will be considered in it, as well as a draft letter without concerns. And so I think, that's one of the things I wanted to bring to you this evening, so that you could consider it. And as people look at this meeting and read through that and kind of see what we had initial thoughts on. And then the other piece is just making sure I wanted to get a little, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen at this phase. It could be if the hearing happens, but looking at the expert kind of person, that could be something bring back to you at a future time once the hearing happens, or we could try to do it now. But we have been working pretty collaboratively with the city of Boulder and Boulder County, who do have, as you noted, that's those resources. So, and we'll continue to do that through the process.
I'm going to sit down unless you all want to talk to me some more. Doesn't look like you do. Thanks.
More questions? Tanya, did you have any questions out there?
No, I don't have any questions. I want to thank the member of SAB who came up and spoke. Super informative. I'm very much on board with whatever letter of opposition, how many we can send from the community. I agree they should be original and poignant to people's personal worries. And I'm very worried. So let's keep this conversation going and get these letters written. Do whatever we can to not stop it. I mean, but within reason, create a sustainable relationship.
Thanks, Tanya. Any more questions? We'll go to public comment and then we'll come back. Public comment from folks in the room. Other guys? You get 3 minutes. State your name and your relationship. You know the drill.
I'm Jack Kirby Miller. I am on SAB, but just wanted to comment as a private citizen. I've had, I'm not a hydrologic engineer, but I took a look at the application for this project. I think in general, I'm not opposed to mining, but I think it doesn't take a very fine brush to the environmental concerns. And I think as it stands, I'd be pretty concerned about it, especially related to the hydrologic issues that John mentioned, the mineral belt they're digging in, the possibility for water intrusion, acidification, the release of minerals. And then in particular, there's a statement that talks about having minimal concern for water quality because it's hard rock mining, it's beneath the subsurface, but there are artisanal wells downhill, downstream that then bring that water to the surface. I think monitoring that would be really challenging, given, as Rich mentioned, there's a 1 month to 5,000 year groundwater cycle. Like, that's a really hard variable to nail down in a way that you can feel confident that you won't have releases during the mine's life or after the mine's life. And I don't think there's really an adequate plan to review that. So there are other things as well, but those were kind of the main ones I wanted to highlight. So yeah, hope that was less than 3 minutes.
I think so. Thanks, Chad. Any other comments from folks in the room? Right.
Hey folks, also a member of SAB, Rab LaChance. Also have degrees in environmental and chemical engineering, but haven't really been practicing for a while. Did read the application. And just for background, this mineral belt and this ore runs, from here all the way to the Idaho Springs area and contains, as stated in the application, cadmium, arsenic, lead, as well as the components being mined and some other heavy metals that are less concerning than these. I'd just like to point out that the current applicant has recently had over permissible levels of cadmium released into Coon Creek in the past. That's within the last handful of years. I also want to point out that this is a pilot project. So I am unaware of any other holdings that this company might have, but if they were permitted to pursue this application and build facilities, then they may be interested in continued mining of this resource in other locations as well. Particularly, this is a sensitive area. It has a lot of recreational use. And I think, upstream of both, it's not upstream of the Nederland water supply, but it does flow through the town of Nederland ultimately and into Barker Reservoir, which is the water supply for City of Boulder. So concerns about that. I want to point out that the particular process that they are proposing here fractures rock. It can fracture rock, particularly within this mineral bed, in unpredictable ways. If we ask for an engineering report, which includes mines in the area, they do lay out in the application that there's nothing within a mile aside from a few different wells, including their own. But if they, so because of the unpredictability of the fracturing of rock, it's hard to say with certainty where this wastewater will go. Further, this process that they proposed has an injection of slurry, which after the removal of the concentrates, the stuff that they actually want out of the process, gets put back into the mine as a disposal methodology. And as has been previously mentioned, retention time in the basin is anywhere between a month and 5,000 years, depending on the particular hydrology of the spot, which wasn't included in the application itself. Something that isn't mentioned, well, I guess I'll back up a step. The application references a mill as integral to the process of this mine, but there's no details about the mill or the siting of that mill.
Yeah, about 10 seconds.
Noise pollution to that mill is in high recreational area. Idaho Springs has had like relocation of things miles from mills. No mills are allowed. Yeah, so I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Folks online, if you have any comments on the Caribou Cross Mine application, now's your time. Everyone in the room has spoken.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Melody Baumhover, Netherland resident, also co-chair of the Sustainability Advisory Board. I won't repeat what all of everybody else has said. We will meet again next Monday, and I would appreciate, if anybody does have concerns, that, they can come and attend that meeting and kind of look at some of these details with us. And I would support the hiring of some sort of expert alongside of Boulder County and the city of Boulder if we can. And I think that there is, a lot of strong objections here, and I'm just glad for the BOT support to, also have strong objections to some of what's going on here. So that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Melody.
Hey, Billy, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, this is Deb DeAndrea, Nederland resident. I actually live on Caribou Road on the creek, and I mirror what the concerns that everyone has been sharing, and more. But one thing, given the Teens Inc. placement for the childcare and the increased traffic, not only for the childcare but for the mine on Caribou Road, there could be some contention regarding not only Caribou Road and the area where the fire department and the new childcare is being proposed, but on 119. And I can just picture the buses coming down from the school on 119 and the trucks going on Caribou Road from the mine and the traffic from the child care center all convening on that corner. And I haven't really heard any discussions regarding any kind of traffic plan that encompasses all of these things that we're talking about. So that's all.
Thanks, Deb. Point. Other comments from folks online? Not hearing any, but not seeing anyone raise their hands or talk, so we'll go ahead and bring it back for final discussion here. So I appreciate you being able, John, to, because I got some people reach out to me and I think I, sent them on to you, but that you've been able to help people, because some people do want to be anonymous. And I think that's.
I just say, as town administrator of Nederland, my door is always open. I will always make time for folks to talk about things they're worried about. If you want to go have coffee, of course I will go have coffee or whatever it is, but just come talk to me if you need help. If the board hears from people who need, who have concerns and need to talk, I'm happy to do that.
Thanks, John. What other comments or thoughts do trustees have on this issue? And the thing is, we got part of why we brought it up today, and we've got, it's the 4th of March. We got another meeting or two before the comments are due. We probably would turn them in. I think they're due the 2nd maybe, and we have meetings on the 18th and the 1st. But we wanted to get this out in the public eye now and for a couple of meetings. So, but what comments do you have now?
I mean, I think you're collecting all of the concerns. It's all going to go into this letter for us to kind of take another look at it. So I'm saying like I'm interested in what this next draft looks like. So I'd say move on.
You have what you need?
I do. Thank you.
Anything else from other trustees? If not, we will go to our final discussion item of the evening, the congressional delegation sign-on letter. We want to propose signing on to a letter to advocate for the protection of the IRA and BIL funding. John?
Yeah, I think this one's pretty simple. I want to thank Cass found that this was happening and she brought it to our attention, and I thought it'd be a good thing to just ask you guys about. These two funding sources have been pretty integral for municipalities over the last couple of years, I guess. And we're just I think what it's doing is asking our delegation to make sure that we do everything we can to protect the investments that they made in America. I think our delegation also is supporting these efforts right now, and they're standing up on these things and working through those processes. But this letter is it's the collective piece of that, of signing on with all the different communities to support it. So we were just asking if you guys are comfortable with us doing that.
Cass is online if you have any questions too.
Oh, great. Cass, you want to give any comments up front before we ask you guys questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I read through the letter, and it's makes a lot of great points about how much Colorado local governments, as well as utilities and businesses, are relying on these funds that have already been allocated from the IRA and the BIL. And I believe for the letter itself, they ask for a first and last name, title, and jurisdiction. So I believe we would need to put someone's name as an elected official on there, just to let you know.
Who's is it? Can we see a copy of this letter, and who's like the author?
I think. Hold on one second. Sorry, this came into the packet at the last second and we didn't.
No problem.
The contact is Anna McDevitt at CC4CA. I believe she's a staff member. So my guess is that she was probably the author.
And it's through CC4CA is the one sponsoring it too as well, Cass, right?
Yes, yeah, it's directly through CC4CA.
Great. No, that's helpful. I think I remember that now, an email you sent earlier, but or John that you sent. What questions do y'all have? Are you basically saying, would we add our names individually? Would we add as, would it basically would someone time?
We want to add the town of Nederland
Yeah.
with your name.
Okay. I'm open to that. I'm extremely open to that because those funds are important for this town as well as many things I am involved with in my real job.
Support these activities.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for nods.
That's all I needed.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure you were aware and I wasn't committing you to a political statement that you weren't comfortable with.
Oh, I'm very comfortable with the political statement. Please move forward with this.
Thank you. I guess we did forego other public comments on this. We didn't forego it, but I skipped that. I'd like to open up for public comment for sure. Brad?
Yeah, Rab again. I just wanted to say that, and it has been mentioned that this is a political comment. I think that these are not necessarily political comments, and these could be policy decisions.
Practical.
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily have to be framed in that way. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that this isn't necessarily a political decision. It's more of a policy decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Good context. Any other comments? Jack? Folks online? Okay. Bringing it back here. Any other comments or nods or not nods? I think we're good. What would be your next step?
I think what we'll do is I believe, Cass, it's like a Google form type sign-on thing, right?
Yes, it's a Google form.
Okay, so we'll just complete that. I think we just have a limited time, so we'll work on that and get it done. And then if there's any follow-up, we'll talk about that. As a note, CC4CA is going to come to a board meeting to discuss their organization with you. And that's happening at the next meeting, right, Cass, on the 18th, I think?
Yes, on the 18th.
Yeah. So we'll have that. And you guys, if there's more questions about this or what their organization does, and we have some questions about how Nederland wants to be represented in CC4CA. So that'll be on the next agenda.
Awesome. Thank you. Because presently, I think Cass, you and Tom Mahold are going to those meetings, right?
Yes, right now we are, but we do want to talk about voting representation in future meetings as well with the BOT.
Great. Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. You good to go on this
Yeah,
item?
thank you all.
Just let me know if I need to be part of sign. Doing a Google form. With that, we'll go to, I do believe we're at the point of other business. Wait, no, public comment. To make sure. Public comments on non-agenda items. Now is the time if you have a public comment on a non-agenda item. Now's your time. All those in the room. Folks online, if you have a public comment on a non-agenda item. Hearing none, seeing none, I'll come back for other business. Any other business?
I have a question. Okay. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add and let you guys know that Cass and I did submit the concept paper.
Oh, cool.
So just wanted to give that update because it was exciting and she put lots of hard work and we love Cass.
For the microgrid for everyone's
Thank you.
reminder.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. What's your?
I was just questioning about this March and we're getting close to spring. What's the plan for Gercio Field? I was just there 3 or 4 days ago and this undulations are as hard as ever and I just don't see it being useful at this point. Do we have a plan with parks? Are we going to, mow it down or do something to get it level again? Is that even been discussion yet? John?
Yeah,
we need to have I think we need to make sure that we're on the same page of priorities for what we're going to do there. There is a possibility that we could irrigate it, and Andrew and I talked to the city of Boulder about that again, just to make sure we need to make sure they're comfortable with what we're doing, and they are. It's possible that we could irrigate that field relatively inexpensively using local expertise, I guess I would say. And we need to talk about that, but we also need to look at
How is that
maybe
level? Because it's irrigated right now. There's been snow on it. It's been raining on it.
Well, it's not. It's just
how is
wet.
that?
It's not irrigated right now. It's just wet. And so that's the problem. In the wintertime, it gets wet. And in the summertime, it's not wet enough. And so then it makes it really hard to grow grass. And I think that's part of the issue we're having.
Texture. Like that has to be dealt with. It's not going to get better. I don't care how much water you pour in that thing.
And that's why I'm saying, I think this is like a conversation that the board needs to have, and it could be a strategic goal because there are financial implications for what it may take to get that field growing. And I think that's something we need to talk about, because if we're talking about amending soil or bringing new soil in and then the whole process and project, do we want to use sod? Do we want to reseed it? How are we going to do that? But what I guess I'm telling you is I think we need to have that brought and have an actual agenda item about it so you guys can discuss it, because we do have some funds that could be used.
Join me on that for an agenda item, because if anyone's walked on that field, it's just shameful to me that, we spent all that money in that grant. We didn't let anybody walk on it or do anything for 2 to 3 years. And it's worse than it was before we started. And what's the plan? What's Parks got to think about it? What is Nikki thinking? Is she concerned?
They need direction from the board.
Is my question.
We need direction from the board, because I think the financial considerations are something that need to be discussed. We can bring an agenda item if you
Yeah.
guys are comfortable with that? And
Yeah. I don't know whether one of us needs to co-sponsor it or whatever, or John, what do you do? But yeah, I'm
Worried about it.
interested.
I'm happy,
Has
I
anybody
can bring it
welcomed it
in the next few
recently?
weeks.
I think given some of the things DDA is working on too, like this seems.
No, DDA hasn't even talked about this. This is not, don't put it on DDA is gonna, this is not, this has
No.
to go back to parks and we
Oh,
have
I know, I
given.
agree. But the DDA is talking about
They're
performance
not even
based.
their radar. They're not even talking about this, I'll tell you. I just can't even believe it. Like I went on that park 2 or 3 days ago and it's not even it's worse than it was before. We lost frozen dead guy days because we told them they couldn't use it because we had to let that seed grow. And it's who created those undulations? Who's responsible for that?
That
You
is
know?
water under the bridge. So
can't get
I think what we got to talk about is moving forward. Yeah.
Well,
And I
what's
think let's plan to bring that back, John. Is that reasonable? Is that something Nikki? I
That's
mean,
not-
I agree it fits into our, it's talking about where it fits in strategic goals. It needs to happen.
I can bring it soon. I can bring it in the next meeting or the one after if we.
The one after is wide open.
Let's do that. April 1st.
Well, yeah, we'll see about the 18th, but I know we talked about something earlier tonight, putting that in there too. So March 18th has actually got a lot of things in there presently. Some might drop off. So possibly March 18th, otherwise April 1st.
I'm just curious if anybody else on the board has walked on that field and if anybody else has reservations about what's been going on the past 3 years of that field. Am I the only one?
No, I do. I haven't walked on it because I don't want to hurt myself, but but yeah, I think it's a waste of the resource.
Over, I don't know, how much money did we spend on that thing? And how much money we lost by losing frozen dead guy days because of it, It breaks my heart, And then here we have it's going fallow.
Well, and to be fair, like I think there were other reasons why we didn't invite Frozen Dead Guy Days back. Like, there was infrastructure pieces.
It was Frozen Dead
told
Guy
them
Days chose not to come back.
Yeah.
They got all about
They
it.
chose to sell the festival and move on to a different town.
Well, and because
Right.
our area was not conducive to holding a 10,000 person festival. So they chose to move on. But I think, Trustee Corvalon, where your concern is that we were told after 2 years that the land would flatten out and that there wouldn't be the undulations. You wouldn't have to, you wouldn't break an ankle, so to speak. And I think that's probably where the
sense before whoever did the work. Like that was not, we never had undulations. What we had was dirt. From packing in from Eldora parking. Where did those undulations come from?
Well, the point for the undulations, I thought, was in order to get the grass growing. It was a strategic move in order to, to get it kind of going, but that it was supposed to flatten out after a couple of years. And I think that's I guess where my concern is that hasn't happened, and perhaps it's because you said, John. And perhaps it's because you said, John, that, that it's not wet enough during the summertime and then, it dries out. And so that could be part of it. But
I think it's likely we may need to look at soil amendments there too.
Yeah,
it's really hard to grow grass here. And
and the soil is rock hard. And I think that's why the undulations haven't gone away.
We pay a bunch of money to have somebody come in and plant grass and do this work, and they didn't do their job. So it's too late for any sort of compensation. But at this point, we have to till it like a farmer and put sod down or something. And when you have the conversation, it's either we're a liability for someone breaking an ankle on that thing, and it's a useless piece of land. You might as well just put like a septic field on there or something. It's useless.
So how about if we plan to talk about it soon in an actual meeting? Well, as an actual aim.
Yeah, I'd like to get Nikki
have
in this
focused
discussion.
conversation.
I'd like to get her back and who's responsible and what's the plan. And
yeah, I think I'm gonna probably push that we don't waste much time on who's responsible more than of the past, but who's responsible and what we're gonna do moving forward.
There we go. How can we make this better without having to not let people touch it for 3 years again?
That's probably going to happen again. Like that's really hard. Maybe not for 3 years, but if you put sod or seed, there's going to have to be we're gonna have to figure that out, but I am committed to doing that. So I will bring something forward that you guys can consider and we can figure that out.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Thank you.
Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Hear a motion, hear a second?
Second.
Which, by the
Go ahead.
way, is
Go-
the password at the community center or at the town hall, which I find is awesome.
Second.
Yeah, we got motions and seconds.
All right, Mayor Billy,
I think that should be all of our passwords.
Yes. Yeah,
Trustee Miller,
that's a good one.
Yes.
Trustee Corvallon,
Yeah.
Trustee Ty,
Yes.
Yes, password to your heart.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes, please.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Trustee Larson.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. The meeting is over at 8:49. Appreciate your time.